Good evening, guys. It's caught my attention. Nintendo has forced Japan's biggest speedrunning charity event, RTA, to remove its games. After years of use, they told each title now requires approval. So, if you're not aware, when it's coming to speedrunning and charity, a lot of classic games are usually used right as a way for these organizations to get money, right? Remember, what was it, like a couple years ago? I think it was almost 10 years ago that I think about it now, where they had like what, a 4 or 5 man speed run of Super Metroid, and that was really, really popular. And over the years, speedrunning has become more and more of a thing. I'm pretty sure. I think at one point, speedrunning became really popular during the whole lockdown situation, where, I mean, most people were in their house, so they had nothing to do but watch other people speedrun, or people themselves got into speedrunning. At that same time, funny enough, that's when I really got into speedrunning, because I found the whole thing to be interesting, right? Or just competitive gaming in general to be very interesting around the lockdown. But let's read the article anyway. Nintendo issued a warning to speedrunners charity event in Japan, which led to the organization pulling its games from their lineup. As the biggest charity speedrunning series in Japan, many had been looking forward to the RTA Summer 2025 event. The marathon, which takes place from August 9 to August 15, 2025, first showcased its lineup of games back in June. From Cuphead, Silent Hill 2, Elder Scrolls 5, Skyrim, and many other, there are plenty of popular titles of games that gamers are familiar with. However, if there's one thing that noticeable, it's the lack of Nintendo games. According to Automation, there was no official explanation behind this at the time. However, now that the event has shed some light on the situation, revealing that the exclusion of Nintendo, not exclusive, you know what I mean, of Nintendo. Exclusion of Nintendo titles was due to them getting a warning. Charity speedrunning event organization warned by Nintendo. On their website, they explained that they were a contract by Nintendo and were told that contact by Nintendo, and were told that as legal entity they would have to ask for permission in advance to feature the game during the event of June 13, 2025. So yeah, everything's getting legal now. Everything needs to go through bureaucratic paperwork. Nice job. I mean, and I know recently Nintendo has been getting a lot of hate with the Switch 2, with the rise of prices for the original Switch 1, which makes me wonder how much of that was due to the tariff and how much was that due to them just wanting people to buy the Switch 2, so they just made an excuse for people to buy the Switch 2 anyway, right? It makes me wonder. Nintendo also said that all previous streams featuring their game constituted unauthorized use. Given that the RTA hoped to stream Nintendo game at a future event, the organization has decided to comply with the permission request and have begun negotiating with the company. Because of this, however, they explained that the game application guideline requirements are expected to change, though they provided information as soon as they have detail. For now, fans shouldn't expect to see games like Mario or Legend of Zelda in the upcoming event, now that they're open about Nintendo warning. As has been the case for a while, Nintendo is known to have strict guidelines regarding its game or IP. This isn't even the first time that companies had led to something like this to happen, as back of February 2022, Super Smash Bros. Was also pulled from the Evo Fighting Gaming Tournament. I do remember that being a big event. She was... Oh, and it's Japanese. I guess we can read this as well. If it translate, there we go. Barely translate. What? I can't read. Okay, there we go. Can't read Japanese. So before we move forward, yeah, it's a very common occurrence with Nintendo that Nintendo has a bad tendency to just do stuff like this. Nintendo has always been known to pull games from people or events. I mean, like remember a couple years ago during the whole thing with Pokemon Uranus, not Uranus, Pokemon Uranium. There you go, Pokemon Uranium. And people remember that whole event and how much that blew up, and how a lot of Pokemon fans games were being pulled. It's kind of a common thing for Nintendo to be very, very strict. I mean, to the point where Nintendo even abuses the American system to their advantage. Where I believe in Japan, I think you can kind of get away with it, but here in America, you really can't. But let's read it anyway. We would like to explain that we would like to explain the circumstance that led to the use of game copyrighted by Nintendo COLTD. Hereinat they refer as Nintendo game in RTA in Japan, and the fact that Nintendo games are not used in RTA in Japan summer 25. I will explain what happened and what I will do next. Until now, RTA in Japan has been using Nintendo games, but on June 13, 2025, Nintendo COLAT announced that regarding the use of Nintendo games by our corporation prior to permission, it's required for the use of Nintendo games by a corporation. Permission is required, and it has been pointed out that our corporation's past use constitute unauthorized use without prior permission. So it sounded like since this charity is more of a corporation or more of a proper like company type deal, but maybe that explains a lot actually. So if they're more of a company than a charity, even if it's a charity, so it makes me actually wonder like Japan's law when it's coming to charity organization compared to those in America. It actually makes me wonder even more now. RT in Japan has hoped to continue using Nintendo games and have begun discussions with Nintendo COLT regarding licensing. The current decision is that from now on we will submit individual permission applications to Nintendo COLT for each event or game through RTA in Japan. So that means that no matter what, every game and every event they have to submit individual permission. Now I wonder if that also just applies for each game, for each event or game through. So that means I guess that means that they gotta be selective. Kind of reminds me back how like Nintendo used to be very, very what's the right word? Nintendo back in the day around like the 80s and 90s, they were very selective on which games were allowed to pass their quality of control. So I wonder if they're gonna have to do the same thing where they have to pick and choose certain games to speedrun, because not every game could be speedrun, because who knows how long the application can go through. If I remember carefully from what I've been told, Japanese bureaucracy has a tendency to be very delayed. As for RT in Japan summer 2025, we decided to not use Nintendo games because we were unable to clearly define how to handle it with announcing the game to be adopted. At the event held at RTA in Japan at the RTA in Japan Summer 2025, we will apply for permission from Nintendo COLT in advance, and upon receiving permission, we expect to be able to use them. That means they probably are doing it right now. That means that we speak, they're probably applying a permission for the next year or two, and hopefully they get approved and hopefully things get through. But who knows? Like honestly, depending on depending on Nintendo and their armies of lawyers, that can literally be dragged out. Please note that RTA in Japan game application guideline and application guidelines are expected to change as a result of this. We will notify you soon as the content is decided. We would also like to express our sincere apologies to those who submitted games that fall under the category at RTA in summer 2025. RTA in Japan. So basically that means for the last segment, essentially, if you were applying for a game under Nintendo, so let's say you're applying for a Nintendo game, well, you're kind of shit out of luck, which sucks because a lot of the time people come to these like speedrunning events for older Nintendo games because people like to see older Nintendo games be speedrun. I know one of the biggest speedrunning was like Super Mario 3, Super Metroid. I believe Donkey Kong is somewhere in there. Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. It's one of the most popular speedrunning games. Punch Out. It's just crazy. But who knows what's going to happen. Till next time, God bless.